Prepare for a fusion of knowledge and exhilaration where education and excitement collide.
Taking you on an adventure that expands your mind and speaks to your spirit.
I'm Master Nick.
I'm Lady D.
We are the Dom Life.
This podcast contains sexually explicit topics and adult content.
It is intended for listeners 18 and older.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are ours alone, based on our personal thoughts, feelings, and experiences.
We understand that others may have different opinions and experiences, and we respect that. We would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at www.thedomlife.com. Hello and welcome back, everyone. We are in for a treat tonight.
Yay!
We have another special guest with us. We have Shannon from LiNK. How are you, Shannon?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We met you one night at Kinktasia, which was a huge event you had put on, and we're definitely going to talk more.
You were running all over the place.
Yes. So we had our one conversation that night, and now we're really going to find out a whole lot about you now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, Kinktasia, how did that come about?
Oh, I've had in my head for a long time about wanting to do one of these kind of things. And when we started LiNK and everything, I said back in 2023, I said, next year we're going to do this. And so we did.
Well, I have to say it was.
So it took you
event.
planned it in less than a year.
I actually planned it in about 6 months total.
Wow.
Holy crap.
Wow.
So it was in my brain, but the actual planning, probably in January, I started working on a timeline and stuff and just went from there.
So did you have a crew of people working with you?
In this case, no, but only because it was my first thing. So how do you delegate things if
When
you
you don't
don't
even
know
know
what
how to
you
do
need
it?
to delegate?
Right.
I had to learn it all. So whenever I had something that I could delegate to somebody, I did. But in this year, it was a lot of just my brain power going into it. Now, day of, we had a massive team working, and they were superstars.
Oh,
They
yes.
were amazing.
The whole event was just amazing.
Yeah.
We are very interested in Kinktasia, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but we don't know anything about you. So you're our first guest on here that we literally don't know anything other than LiNK and Kinktasia and love leather and lace.
That's fun.
So we know the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your interest, your kink, your kinks. What have you got?
When people ask me that, I never really know what to say because what is your kink? Yes.
Yep.
I have dipped my toes in so many different places in kink. Right. I usually say now that my primary kink is actually helping other people find what they enjoy.
There you go.
Wow, that's a good one.
I like that.
I think that Master Nick does a little bit of that.
I do.
That's why we do a lot. That's one of the reasons we're doing the podcast is because we're trying to help others through us and our experiences being able to experience.
Right. And not only that, not only to help other people. I mean, that is one. I love finding out about other people's kinks and all that as well. But the biggest reason for this was to educate. And that's one thing that we have noticed, reading through the bylaws and stuff like that. We'll get into all that to LiNK here in a minute too. But one of the biggest things for you all is to educate. And for me, it's, of course, I'm into the BDSM. I'm a dominant. I love holding a flogger.
And you make those.
Yeah, and you make them. And I love, using the floggers and all my implements on people. But what I learned was anytime you talk to somebody that wasn't in that scene, the first thing they would say is, I don't like pain. And of course, I'm like, it don't have to be about pain. There is so much more. So that's what really got me thinking about, starting the website, which we started a little over a year ago. And then back in March, somewhere between March and April, I got thinking, I want to do a podcast. And that's the thing, is to take out the misconceptions, kind of open the door for people to explore what they want. You may not be into BDSM, but there is so many other kinks out there. So hearing a little bit about something might open your mind up to start exploring. And we have the avenues where they can reach out to us. And if we don't have an answer, we've got a pretty good group of people, and you're going to be involved in that group now of people that if we don't have an answer, we've got other people like you that we can turn to. So that, I like, what are you on your FetLife? You are a fairy godmother.
Fairy kink mother.
Fairy kink mother. That's it right
That'll
there.
be my Halloween costume too this year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Fairy kink mother.
That's awesome.
I want to see pictures.
I think about it this way, is like, if you look at fairy godmothers, things like that, in all the cartoons, they don't actually grant wishes. That's
Right.
not what they do.
Right.
They give you the tools for you to go out and do it yourself,
Exactly.
to make your own things come true. So what I want to do is give people the tools, especially like it took me a long time to get to where I am and my comfort levels.
Right.
I want to help people accelerate that.
Right.
Right.
I want them to find the sources, the resources they need to get that information. And so they don't have to go out
Right.
and try to find it on their own in ways that
Exactly.
could be dangerous, or ways that they might not have all the knowledge to do it with.
And you're even creating those resources through LNK and through your work. You create those resources, and I find that is absolutely amazing.
Right.
Amazing. So, when did you know you were kinky?
When did I know I was kinky?
Yeah. So, like, when did this start in your world?
Literally all of my life, but in the 90s, we didn't have the internet. I grew up in like rural northern New York, up in the Adirondack Mountains for the most part. So
Beautiful area.
It is. I was in a very religious community, and so we didn't have the resources, the words to say. All I knew was I was always a little different. I always like things that were a little like, okay,
Right.
Shannon. And I learned really early on to be really quiet about all the things that I liked and all the things that interested me, because no, you didn't do that.
Right.
But as I got a little older, I went into the military. I traveled a lot. I've traveled pretty extensively. And I got to realize that there's more to life. There's more out there.
Right.
And I honestly, we were in the swinging kind of community before I ever knew I was kinky, before I knew that there was a thing.
Right.
And we were opening our relationship a little bit. I was on a dating site, and somebody had mentioned something about rope bondage. And I was like, I haven't tried that. And so just down the rabbit hole I went, and it was all over from there.
Right.
It was like, oh, and I felt like for the first time, I really felt like I am seen. Like I will be accepted in this community. Like they're gonna like not look at me and okay, Shannon. Hopefully, but yeah, I've gotten that a lot still.
Less so than when you were young, I'm assuming, but it's still there.
Right. Okay. So grew up in New York. Did I hear you say that correct? In New York?
I was
Okay.
born in New York, but I lived a little bit in New York and New Mexico and South Carolina. I went to 13 schools before I graduated from high school.
Was your parents military too? Is that created?
Early on, my dad was military. He was in the Marines, but mostly because we were poor. So, and then they separated and they lived in 2 different states. So
then it
Okay.
was traveling
back and forth. And then I actually was in foster care at 13.
Okay.
And I got emancipated at 16.
Wow, that
So-
was so much. That's so much. What
Yeah.
a life you've lived.
I have lived.
I mean,
a very-
honestly.
I say a lot of times it feels like I have lived many lives.
right.
Yeah.
Many lives.
And that means you had to be strongly independent and go your own route. And that creates a whole thing itself.
It does.
I never even, strangely enough, knew about swinging or swingers. It wasn't a thing for me in my worlds. And I didn't even realize how big it was until I was going down the BDSM rabbit hole. I know that I'm a submissive sexually. That's what I enjoy. I can't, I have to have it, right? So it's not a choice. If I don't have it, then relationships fail. And they'll be great, but then it's like, having sex is like, oh, we're friends. Yeah, that's nice. You know,
It's missing something.
It's missing something for me. So you said you always knew you were kinky. There was a little bit of the stuff, and then rope is where you kind of jumped from, hey, this swinging world into more, bigger.
Yeah, rope was what really brought me in. And I actually still to this day think that rope is one of the most accessible things for an intro into this kind of world, because it has that artistic expression, but it also has the functionality to it. And it's, you know, you can go to some fairs in certain cities, like parades and things, and see rope just easily there.
Right.
Like people self-suspending, things like that, and nobody blinks an eye.
Right, because it's rope.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to have a sexual connotation. The harnesses that are made and stuff like that.
Yeah, you go getting into the shibari, it's not so much sexual as it is artistic and meaningful on it. So yeah, a lot of people now at our club, rope draws a lot of attention. There's a lot of people that's interested in rope, but of course BDSM does too. You know, we go to Club Tempted. You know, it started off basically as a swingers. Now it's more of a lifestyle. You'll find not just swingers there. I mean, there's a big BDSM group. There's a whole big
BDSM
fetish group there as well. You know,
I know a lot of them.
yeah, yes, you do. And so, I mean, that's where we really, when we found that club, that's where we started broadening ourselves up to it, and then, like I said, trying to get involved more into taking out misconceptions and finding conventions and all that kind of stuff has really opened our eyes to a lot of stuff that's out there that I didn't even know existed.
And similar to what you were talking about, where people just think that BDSM is about pain.
Right.
I think rope is one of those things that teaches you BDSM doesn't have to be pain. It can be beauty. It can be just this experience between two people that has nothing to do with pain.
During Kinktasia, we talked about all of the rope performances there and how they were very different from one another, and yet they were all beautiful. And we are lucky enough that we're going to have Snap Ginger on too.
She's great. When I first started up here, first thing we started was a rope class. I taught the first rope class.
You taught it, so you...
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, I always, Captain Leviathan,
Uh-huh.
first rope class was that one I taught. And I quickly knew that I was not going to be able to teach to the level that necessary. So I invited some instructors, and Snap Ginger did a great job. And the whole crew that they work with, she does the rope classes for our group as well under her Afraid Not. I love that, AFK, Afraid Not.
Right.
And that whole group that they work with, Captain Leviathan has become one of the top riggers in that kind of thing for me.
When they do it, when they did
that
that
was so
performance together, I thought, not just me, anybody that I talked to, everybody was like enthralled, because it was a very sexual, but not, it was just so sexy. And during the instruction, my thoughts weren't on, oh, what a sexy person, or it was, once they were together playing with the rope, it was the sexiest, intriguing, open your eyes, man, I want to do it, which is what my next thing is. Once I have a minute of free time, you will be seeing me over at the events, the classes.
Excellent. I'm sure you'll really enjoy it. There was a sensuality there though too.
Yes, there was.
But and you're right, the variety was nice, because you had very dynamic, then you had very quiet, then you had very sensual. There was all of that. And Snap Ginger set up all the performances for that day.
Really?
I just basically said, hey, there's a stage here and we want to do some rope. What can you bring in here? I'm like, so that was one of those things I was able to actually delegate. I was like, then not my field. You know the guys, the rope people who you would want to have up there. And they took care of all that. They took care of the music, all of that. So I was very thankful for that too. And they did a wonderful job.
We loved it.
It was great. We've actually compared it, because, again, for us, the BDSM, but we done a demo where we had 4 DOMs and 4 submissives basically all on stage at one time. We started the start time staggered, but at the end of it, there was 4 of us. And of course, you go to any DOM, you're going to find floggers, you're going to find paddles, you're going to find canes. You find all the same things. And it's just like that night. All the performers had rope, and all the performers had where they could suspend themselves. But each one of them took their own unique design and their style. And, either they was tying somebody up. You had the single performer tying theirself up. And it was just amazing to know that many performers can do the same, using the same implements, the same tools, and can make it totally different. It was again, Kinktasia, holy hell. It was great.
We stayed the whole,
did,
from
yes.
rope, from the rope 101, I guess it was rope boot camp, all the way until the place closed.
You were there almost as long as I was.
Yeah.
But I was going to say one more thing about the rope, though. It's just like any artist, we all use the same paint, the same kind of canvas, but we create very different things with that. And that's what for BDSM, that's what it's like for me in general. That just the kink thing is like, we all have the same thing.
Right.
But it's how we use it that really matters, right?
Exactly. Yes.
110%.
Yep. Well, you are also an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community and gender affirmation.
I would say that that's a very important part of what I strive to do. Growing up, again, in a very rural area, I was always attracted to all the, the gay kids and the kids that were kind of on the outside a little bit. And I saw them go through a lot, At that time, I was very I consider myself on the asexual spectrum, which means I don't experience typical attraction. So it was very easy for me to just kind of be quiet, to just kind of not deal with the same kind of things. But I saw people do it over and over and over again. When I got older, my daughter transitioned in high school, and I didn't know a lot. I was still learning so much. Again, I was playing catch up over 20 years of lack of knowledge. And the more I learned, the more I realized that there were a lot of support groups for certain kinds of aspects of this.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of just education for the general community, not just the people in these marginalized communities, but the whole city.
Right.
We need to just have this understanding of what's going on, because actually it's not even understanding, it's acceptance.
Right.
Because
understanding means you're something else, you're still outside of it, but acceptance means it's just a part of our worlds.
Like when my daughter came to me and she was talking to me, I was like, I've never questioned my gender, sexuality. I just am. That's what I say. People ask me, what gender I am. This is who I am. Whatever you think I am, doesn't matter. I am. So I can't understand in that way of that struggle of dealing with not feeling right, not feeling that same thing. But I realized somebody said something. I kept saying, I can't understand. I'm struggling to understand this. And they were like, why do you need to understand it?
Right.
Just accept it. This is just who they are. It has nothing to do with you. You don't need to have the understanding. You have to understand about yourself.
Right.
Not about others.
Wow. That's a good one.
Good.
That's good, because my son, we talk about all the time that he's on the spectrum. He definitely, I say that, but he's autistic. He has a formal diagnosis, but he is high functioning. Not that they're not all high functioning in their own way, but he, in the normal world, is high functioning. It is very likely that he's going to be.
He's going to be coming to LNK events. I guarantee it.
Yeah, he's on the
fluidity.
That's the word. The fluidity of his sexuality. He doesn't. It's not like he's a guy's guy, and he can go both ways. And I'm very well aware of it, and it's great to hear that sometimes it is.
Yeah, you're
It
just not
is.
going to be able to. And I do find a lot in this community, especially with the LGBTQ focus and things like that, that we do attract a lot more of the people who are on the spectrum and stuff. Because one of the things we find with a lot of people, because I'm also in that range.
Me too.
I just got diagnosed last year with ADHD,
My
and
son ADHD. I definitely have that.
and my daughter's also on the spectrum. But we find that if they don't understand why it matters, then they don't really care about it.
That's my son, 100%.
So why does it matter? Why does it matter? Like, I like this person. Why does it matter what gender they are? Why does it matter what sexuality you want to say it is?
Right.
I just like this person. Like, I don't understand what your big deal is about this.
That is 100% it, because he's not recognizing skin color. He doesn't recognize different wealth or not wealth. He just, I like you and I want to be with you. And that's the way he feels. So.
It's that dropping of, a lot of times you see in autistic or people on the spectrum, that dropping of that social construct.
Right.
Of like,
because they're not
why
part
is it
of
important?
that. It isn't. And it makes me really sad when I see him accepting what our schools and what other people are pushing on him to be something that he may not have been if the world allowed him to.
It's very difficult.
Because you do see it. And it's like, I have to force it. I, as a parent, have to force some of this on him, because I'm like, you have to be a productive member of society, however that looks. I'm not going to let you say, I'm autistic and I give up. So I'm forcing some of that on him because we're both a little bit older. I adopted him late in life, and I want him, when I'm gone, to be able to go, I can live this life. But he's not like all the other kids.
Yeah.
And I don't want him to be like all the other kids, but I want him to be able to get through schoolwork, get through homework so that he can get a job.
I mean, honestly, this is like learning to teach an autistic child things like life skills takes a different street than it can take for a neurotypical child.
Yes.
And it's not doing anything wrong trying to get them to the point where you can live in society. You don't have to be what they are. You just have to learn how to deal with it.
Right.
And that's what I tell him. Master Nick has raised 3 kids, lots of grandkids, but I look at him regularly with my son and I go, did you go through this? And he's like, no. So I took a massive turn, but that's only because it's so important to me. And I am very thankful to you for having a community that he'll be able to go to. And you're creating it in a way that I don't think it's bigger than you. It's bigger than you.
Hopefully. That
and
is
it's
the
getting
end
there.
goal.
Like,
is
the people that we've met and the variations of identities and pronouns and all these stuff didn't exist. It didn't exist. And we're having a hard time because every so often somebody will say, hey, they identify as non-binary. And it's like, I'm really sorry. I tried really hard. We do our best during these episodes not to gender identify because we don't know. Just because you look a certain way doesn't mean that's the way you are. And so just in that group, we grew.
That's great. One of the reasons why LiNK exists is because of that disparity. The world is changing.
Yeah.
And we adapt or die. That's what we do. And I want the community that's coming up, the younger people and stuff, to have that foundation of like, and again, it's that reason why that we're not just in this insular thing, why we want the greater community to be involved is because they learn to get along with us. We learn to get along with them. We have knowledge about each other. Maybe we have a little more like, acceptance in that way. By the way, my pronouns, I don't give a shit. He, she, they. It's like I said, no matter what you call me, it does not change who I am.
Right.
Right.
And I hope that everybody someday can feel in that security,
Right.
And unfortunately,
I think that
it's hard.
takes age and experience.
Yeah.
Right.
And some people, just because their experience was the negative side of it, that they won't they won't get there.
Absolutely.
Well,
It's hard.
Even going back to when we done our podcast on Kinktasia, we had so much we wanted to talk about. And then it was a lot of pre-planning.
Yeah.
Shit, we didn't meet them. We don't know if it's a he, a she, a they. We didn't know. So we really had to watch and be careful talking about stuff we seen, but not meeting them. And one of the biggest things was when it come to the
Cabaret.
cabaret show.
Oh my gosh, that is so much
Her
fun.
favorite part was, and we met Dan 2 weeks ago, which is freaking awesome. But Dan was one of the guys with.
Dan and Brad.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sure Dan told us the name, but I couldn't remember. But trying to explain their performance without explaining their performance was difficult.
Yes.
But Dan said, I realized what you were doing and I still appreciated it so much because you explained my performance. So
I don't know how you can explain that. It was great though. It was terrific. And they're going to do some more performances that I'm really excited to see.
you could see that they put in the effort.
And they have so much fun with it.
Oh,
They have so much fun.
Well, I mean, we met him at a comedy club.
Yeah. Yeah.
And instantly he was like, I recognize your voices. He pulled his chair over to where we was sitting and we spent the rest of the night talking to him.
He was so excited when I sent him the podcast. He was just like ecstatic. I think that really gave him a good boost to hear other people outside of just his friends being like, you did a great job.
That's what we're getting with the podcast too. When we walk into somewhere that nobody really knows us and somebody says, hey, I've heard of you.
Yeah.
We listen to whatever. So, yeah. All right. So
it's strange the more you start getting recognized and you're like, hi.
Right. And sometimes you're wondering, do I know you? Do I know you? Like, am I supposed to know your name? Because I'm going to feel really bad if I don't, and I should. So thankfully, we know that it's the podcast now.
The last couple of weeks, I have gotten mistaken for somebody else multiple times.
Oh no!
Like
there's your
straight up, they're like right in my face, and they think I'm somebody else. I'm like, do I have a doppelganger?
You
account
do.
now?
You must.
Oh,
They must
wow.
have come into town versus wherever
I'm gonna put
they
some
were
like
before.
posters up of my face and being like wanted.
Have you seen this person?
Yeah.
So speaking of coming to town, so New York, a lot of other places. What brought you to Louisville?
Oh, you see how he said Louisville?
Louisville. How do you say it?
Louisville.
See?
I do too.
Close enough to
Louisville.
No.
Nobody says it.
Louisville. Nobody
Well,
ever says that, but that's supposed to be like everybody, like if you're from out of town and you say Louisville and they're like, no. And I'm like, no, whatever. It doesn't sound right any other way. So I'm going to say it the way I want to say it.
Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
Illinois.
But
Right. From Chicago, I would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So
we were, my husband was in the military and that's what we met. I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy too, but he stayed until retirement. He stayed 24 years.
You were in the Navy?
I was in the Navy, yes.
You got on a ship with
I
all
did.
those
I sure
men
did.
and you went off.
I sure did. I was on the USS Keir Sergeant, LHD-3.
What was your
I was electronic warfare.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. So I know who to call now.
So now my question real quick on that is, did it feel like it was the right place for you? Or did you just do that because you were trying to figure out?
There's a lot of reasons I went in. A lot of reasons I went in. And
But the MOS just seems...
Well, you take the tests and stuff, and then your scores tell you what you qualify for. And again, remember, this is back in like 1990, what was it, 96? 1996. And so you take the test, and then you get this like computer screen just of like what you qualify for. And so I'm scrolling. I qualified for a lot. And so I get by the time I get to the E's, I am freaking bored. And so like
ADHD
close your eyes and point.
1980s, you had War Games, Matthew Broderick War Games, right?
The movie was so good.
And so like I see this thing that says electronic warfare technician, and I'm like, oh, I get to play games. And I was like, I want that. And he's like, yeah, but you got to sign up for 6 years for that one because you got 2 years of schooling with that. And I'm like, okay. And then when we get to school and everything, we find
I
out
love
that
you.
basically the whole thing is you have a giant like radar detector and a screen that shows you what radars you're picking up, and that is your job.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, it is a little more complicated than that, because you got to learn about missiles, and you have like jamming and the chaff, which is like the
the
tin
stuff
foil
that comes
stuff.
out of the
That's who controls all that. In fact, the rate that I was doesn't exist anymore. It got swallowed up.
Okay.
But anyway, my husband stayed in until retirement. We spent the last 4 years of his enlistment in England, living in rural England.
Right.
And so when we got out, like we had a couple of weeks where we didn't know where we were going. We were just staying in a hotel. And he had been stationed at Crane in Indiana.
Okay.
There's a Navy base. Nobody seems to know this. Well, it's a naval weapons station in southern Indiana.
I
Didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's right up. It's south of Bloomington, Indiana.
Okay.
It's 100 square miles of just forest and bunkers. So he had been there, stationed there before. He had some contacts still there before. And so somebody offered him a job. And so they're like, I guess we're going back to Indiana. And so we went to Bloomington, and we were there for like 10 years in the Bloomington area. We spent some of it in rural Indiana and then some of it in Bloomington. But COVID came along.
Right.
And at this time, we're living in a poly household. I had my submissive partner and his wife there. And in the middle of COVID, that relationship broke up. We actually had my first business with them. Like, we broke the business up and everything.
Ouch.
And I was talking to my husband, and I'm like, there just seems like there's nothing here for me. I have an art history degree. There was nothing to do. Even there's an art museum, there's galleries there, but all the students would take up all the positions like immediately.
Right.
Right.
And most of them didn't get paid. It was just internships.
Right. So there's no paying jobs for you.
And so I was like, what am I supposed to do here? And he's like, well, we can move. And I was like, well, where can we move to? And he's like, I can work anywhere, because he goes to the ships in the shipyards. So he has to go up to the base when he's in town. He goes up to the base like once a week to check in, do paperwork, all that. But otherwise, he never goes to the base. His work is elsewhere. So he said anywhere, especially if there's a shipyard there. And so I actually I looked around the entire country, all the cities that I would want to live in and the climates I would want to live in. Then I did a comparison of the cost of living of these different places.
You're amazing.
And the culture of those different places.
This is why Kinktasia was so amazing.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Exactly.
And so Louisville won. And the funniest thing is I had only been to Louisville a couple times, even living up in Bloomington for all that time and having lived in the city before, up in Bloomington before. I didn't know anything about Louisville, nothing. So I moved here almost completely blind.
Well, we're
And then
definitely glad
then
you
what
came.
happened?
And
Once you got here,
I got here in December of 2020. And of course, that was just like the end of, we're just getting over COVID stuff. We're just starting to like come out and stuff. And I think it was about April of 2021, I started going to events to see what was around here. I'd already heard some things about the local community.
yes.
And so, but I was like, I will take what people say into account, but I have to make my own decision.
Right.
And I always encourage everybody
We
to do
did
that.
the same.
So I went to some events, and there were some very lovely people. But I was looking around, and I was like, there's not a whole lot of young queer folk here. There's not a lot of people of color here. And I know this city, the demographics, there should be more. So if there's not, then something's not happening that's bringing them in. Something's making them feel not comfortable. And it could be the venue, it could be the people, could be a lot of different things. So we were like, Kenny, King Felix.
Right.
You know, he's a young black man. I believe he identifies as straight. Sorry, Kenny, if you don't. And, you know, then there's me, this like queer, agender, asexual, like weirdo, right? And I'm like, hey, we could do something. And he's like, hey, we could do something. So he found this hip little bar at the time, and we were just like, we're just going to have a get together. That was it. That was all we wanted to do, was have a slosh. And I messaged like the other local group that was holding sloshes, and I was like, hey, we're not interfering with your day. We're going to have our thing on this day, and hopefully, you know, you'll be able to come out and make it and things like that. And it just spiraled from there. It just spiraled and spiraled.
Right.
Well,
Even before we met you, we knew people that knew you. So we had heard different things even a few years ago.
Like, Shannon, she's great, but she's really like ditzy sometimes.
Sparklemoonbeam is the one you have to watch out for.
Yeah.
I mean, Shannon's awesome.
Her ADHD sometimes. You just got to remind her of everything.
I walk through my house doing that.
Yeah.
And I walk into one room and I go, I got to take care of that. So I start that and then move to the other room because I was like, oh, I was going to pick up. And then by the time I'm done, I've got projects in every room that I then have to go through and finish one at a time.
Yep. That's pretty typical. Yep.
My brain hurts some days.
Going back to where we, like she had said, we'd heard a lot about you. We hadn't seen pictures of you or even knew what you looked like. But one thing that I still just, the thought that comes into my head that I randomly just laugh about is being at Kinktasia. And it seemed like every time I turned the corner, I was running into you. And I'm sitting there thinking, who is this person? And are they following me? Like every time, 2 or 3 minutes later, I turn the corner, boom, there you are. Damn, there they are again. And then go walk a little bit more and turn the corner, and boom, there they are again. And then I had questions about the coins, and you were the one that, of course I'm running into you. So now I'm going to stop you and ask you. And then later that night when we actually stopped and talked, then it was like, oh shit, that's Shannon. That's who we've heard so much about.
And that's the reason why she was everywhere at one time.
Then it all made sense.
You were always on a mission to get something done, something fixed, something moved. I can't even imagine.
The worst part about this whole thing with Kinktasia is that I was supposed to be in my boot and not walking around.
Oh no, that's when
I started out at the beginning like in my crutch with like the whole thing, and then I just couldn't. There was so much going on. It was slowing me down so fast. I walked miles that night. The next day, my foot was so swollen.
So you were even checking in people at the door. Like you did it all. Because when I walked in, you were like fixing the computers or something. There was a problem seeing where people go.
Yeah.
So
Now, I do have one complaint because apparently when we first got there and checked in, she got my goodie bag with the tickets in it.
No, I didn't.
And I somehow got hers because I was supposed to have won twice, not her.
Somebody didn't get the message apparently.
Oh, man.
So that paddle is very obviously mine.
Yeah.
Do you see the dragon?
Well, it would have been nice if I had won it and give it to you. Would have made it so much better. So there was a mix-up with the tickets when we first got there. So we'll have to make sure that's all resolved.
We'll make sure that next year everybody knows the deal.
He's the winner, not me.
Yep.
The dragon, we chose that one because obviously our mascot is a dragon.
Right.
So
it fits her perfectly. Let's talk about love, leather, and lace.
Let's do that.
So wait, we got you here.
Yeah.
Did you start this before or after that?
I had another company with my former partner called Simply Kink, and we were active for about 5 years. And then when we split, we kind of split the assets. The cuff designs were mine, so that's what I took with me. As I said, I want the sewing machine and my cuff designs. And after I established back here, in fact, even when we were remodeling the house, when we were going through all that stuff, I was still starting up my business. I was still putting out orders. I was in this tiny little room with all of my stuff. It was so rough, but eventually one of the things we built in was my office space that I have now, which is quite a bit bigger, but honestly, I could use even more at this point.
We can too.
You can always use more.
Yeah.
We need more space.
But I didn't want to quit because I thought I had something that was like a special thing and I didn't want to stop it.
Right.
So I started up again, and it's funny because when I started going to events, one of the first people I met here that I got involved with, she comes over to my house after a date, and we're in my shop just checking things out, and she looks at my stuff and she's like, I just bought something that looks a lot like that. And I was like, did you? And she's like, yeah, she had 2 weeks before we met, bought a blindfold from my shop.
Oh, wow.
Y'all met Nicolette.
Yes.
Yes.
I met Nicolette at a, she's my sis. She's my little sis, believe it or not, even though she's like, what, 6'2", 6'3". She's tall.
Right.
But she's my little sis. And I met her at like a coffee meetup. And we were talking about stuff. And one of my things is that I want my stuff to be affordable.
Well, it is. And
very
that is
affordable.
what I was on the podcast telling everyone, that it's an amazing quality. And at the same time, it was so affordable.
She was grabbing everybody that we knew and was taking them over to
Everybody.
the booth to talk to Nicolette, who was
You had-
amazing that night. So knowledgeable, knew exactly the process, knew the types of material, knew everything about the processes and everything.
And
with
was
it.
answering questions from like 5
And
people
was
at one time.
at one time, just getting bombarded.
She was excellent. I was so sad that I couldn't be at the booth because, like, of course, I was running around everywhere. But she agreed to like do it for that day. When I first met her, she wanted some cuffs and stuff. Apparently, I had already been on her wish list, like on her Etsy wish list. And she said, "I've just been waiting for to get the money to do it." And I was like, "Well, if you want to come to the shop, I will teach you how to do what I do. And the deal is you can come in, I will teach you how to do it, but you do one for you, one for me. Everything you do, one for you, one for me."
Right.
And so I still have this deal with a lot of people is you want to learn how to do this stuff, you come in, I will teach you. And you make one for me, one for you.
Wow.
And so she came in and she was, at the time, she was doing like vegan leather and stuff like that. And I used to do vegan leather. I don't anymore. Plastics. But as time went on, she started to learn more and more, and she picked it up so fast.
Right.
I'd never seen anybody pick it up like her. And she was just like
Some
a
people
whiz
are
at it, right? And then she
natural
just
skill.
expanded and expanded and expanded in what she did. And now she can ultimately do, I think, just about everything that I do in the shop.
Right.
She does it all. And she's even done her own little, she started with like her own little epoxy thing on the side. And of course she does these floggers.
Right.
She likes the braiding. I don't do good braiding.
This is amazing because it feels different than any of our other floggers.
Yes.
It hits different. I walk around with that hitting myself a lot, just tapping myself because I love the way the falls hit. They're a little bit stiffer, so it feels so good.
You get more of a thud from it. Or if you was to, the way you swing it, use just the ends of it, then you get the little bite from it. But for her, she likes feeling all of it hitting her all at once, and just that heaviness and the stiffness gives that heavy thud.
Yes.
Yeah, she loves it.
I think it's great because a lot of times, I know in my own toy bag, I have so many floggers, but they're all kind of eventually the same.
Right.
There's not a lot of variation. And with a business like this, one of the things is change. You got to innovate. You got to, and people like matchy things.
Right.
So I like to give
That
more and more
whole
pieces to the set. Yeah.
It was
Our
like
friend
the Galaxy set or
Milady K bought a whole set.
something.
Yeah. Of
The whole
with the
set.
green.
Yes. Because lime green, neon green, obviously is my favorite color, and I had my eyes on that, and I thought, no, I'm not. And then she goes up there and freaking buys it right out from underneath me.
Right.
All of those neon green ones that I made,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I bought another hide, and we're going to do some like this with the neon green too.
He's gonna
Oh.
need-
Yeah.
Oh.
As you can see, this
Yeah.
is what he designed. We had a conversation about the fact that the Dom Life is green, black, and white. Those are the colors.
That was like, I mean, that is a focus of like my entire business, is because when I first got into the BDSM world, I looked around for equipment and stuff, and the good quality pieces, there are a lot of wonderful people out there making
Yes,
stuff.
100%.
But they were kind of out of my price range most of the time.
Yes.
And then I also noticed there was a real lack of like pretty and functional. Like my stuff is supposed to be beautiful and strong. And I used to have an ad campaign that was beautiful and strong, just like you.
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
So like finding out the method of being able to make what I make now, and how, it took so much trial and error. But I had a lot of the skills, a lot of the ideas already, because I had been making costumes and drag outfits, and then I went into lingerie for a while, and then this was just like a natural progression with my interests.
Right.
So I really just wanted beauty. I wanted something that was like, nah, this is gonna hold you, but you're
Right.
gonna look fabulous in it.
Right.
And you've succeeded in that. Totally.
Because looking back a little over 5 years ago, when me and Lady D first got together, and coming into it, it's all brand new to me. I had the dominant tendencies, but I didn't know what that meant. I'd never heard of BDSM. 50 Shades of Grey, never heard of any of that. It was all. So she's telling
Brand new.
She's
Brand
telling
new.
me what all she needs in her life, and I'm getting excited as
First
hell.
date.
going-
I'm not messing around.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the first date.
I'm excited as hell. Going, I want to do that shit, but to anybody else, the police would have been called. So then it's immediately researching. Well, where do I find cuffs, and where do you get this? And it is very hard to find. I finally found a place in Oklahoma or Texas or somewhere's in the United States, but not in Kentucky. And they had where you could customize your own cuffs and collars. And within the first 6 months, I had bought like 3 collars, a cuff set, bracelets, but I'm spending a lot of money on this cuff set.
I feel like I know exactly what website you're talking about because
Yeah.
there's only one
That
I
lets
know
you do
of.
all the
And
custom-
actually, we're making an app. I actually have hired somebody to make an app to do
that.
something a little more polished than
Right.
that. But yeah,
Yeah, and then so
Yay.
we're up there, and
So
of course,
excited.
going to the club, we've got we know other people now that make the floggers. So finding your group and finding your community, and they're like, hey, I had this person make me something, so I've got a flogger from that person, and then I found this person. So I'm buying floggers, from all of them because I want something from everybody. And then to walk into your little booth up there and look at it and going, man, that's going to be like a $400 flogger right there, and flipping over, it's only like $75. I'm going, what the hell? This is where I need to be.
I spent all my money at
Yeah.
that booth. I didn't buy anything from any other booth, and I was dragging every one of my friends over there saying, everybody that we were with that night got something from
which is wonderful.
your booth.
I mean, there is not a single thing at my booth that is over $75.
It's amazing.
Now, I do got to say, and I don't remember where I use. Let's see, you're on Etsy. I don't think your website you have where people can message you.
I have a website, and my website's up, and right now it's linking to my Etsy. But like I said, I'm working with a software developer right now to
So
do something special.
Somewheres in your messages, you will find a message from me saying, hey. Tune in next week to find out what that message was.
Master Nick, why do you always got to leave everybody hanging?
It's fun.
Well, I think we should just tell them right now that we were asking for help.
Yes. But
Okay.
what kind of help was I needing?
We are not going to go there, but what I do get to I get to say something. I get to spread the news that next week we talk to LiNK some more, Shannon,
Yes.
and then the week after that is the long-awaited Subby Day episode part 1.
Yes.
So you've got to listen next week, and you got to listen the week after.
Yep.
Please follow, like, and share our podcast.
Make sure to visit thedomlife.com where you can find pictures and other details about the Dom Life podcast. And through the Contact Us button, you can ask questions or provide recommendations for future episodes.
We want to explore your kink too.
Be sure to check out upcoming events to see where our adventures are taking us and our photo gallery to where we've been.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you had fun listening and learning with us.
Till next time, keep calm and remember your safe word.
Red, red, red.